Hello, everybody. Welcome to another amazing, wonderful, fantastic webinar. So, if you are here with me live, please hit that like button, hit subscribe, put a smiley face in the chat. Let me know that you're here. I love when people join me live. I have a bunch of different platforms that you can find me on. You can find me on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook. So, today we're going to be going over law of agency questions. So, if you haven't already, head on over to passbuddy.com. That's where we have all of our practice questions, tips, tricks to help you pass your real estate exam. That's where we'll be setting up for the new year our crash courses, our webinars, everything that's going to be for our member community. And I just want to tell everyone, I see a bunch of people typing in the chat already on our various different platforms. So thank you for being here. And also, if you have questions, if you're here with me live, feel free to type it into the chat. I'd be more than happy to answer them for you because that's part of the reason why, for those of you who do join us when we go live, it's part of the benefit, right? You get to ask me some questions. You get to say, hey, Stu, I got a question or I got something that I would like your insight on. I've been in the real estate industry for over 20 years now. I had a full set of hair, full head of hair when I started in the industry. Now not so much. So, yeah, it's a situation where I've been here for a long time. So, I've seen a lot of things, done a lot of things. I've worked with a lot of different people. I've managed teams. I've worked for some of the biggest real estate companies in the industry. And now I'm here sharing all of my knowledge with all of you on how to get into the industry. So, let's start with law of agency questions. And let's take a look at this first one here. And it says, what type of agency relationship does a listing or a buyer agency agreement establish between the broker and the client? Is it a universal agency, a general agency, a special agency, or a limited agency? Now, I want to just say this because something that I want to point out about agency, right? So, agency, okay? Agency, what that is when one person represents another, right? Or works on behalf of another. So listen to what I'm going to say because I think this is really super important because this comes in when we're talking about contracts. This comes in when we're talking about various different aspects of what we're learning. You always, the student always focuses on the fact that, hey, I'm learning this specifically for real estate. And what I want to say is this, and I really want to point this out, and I really want to stress this. When you're learning about agency, when you're learning about contracts, when you're learning about different things, you are learning the general law of agency. You're learning the general law of contracts. And then what happens is it does funnel down to specificity in regards to real estate, but understand that the foundation of what you're learning is general agency. We're talking about just overall foundational agency, right? We're talking about contracts in general. So we have someone typed in the chat, is this special agency? Guess what? When you are only doing one job for someone, is that special agency? Absolutely 100% that's special agency. So, also, too, special agency. I'll give you another example of special agency outside of real estate so that you could relate it to other things because I think it's important to understand what we're talking about here. So, special agency is when you do one specific thing. There is one specific thing that you are representing someone else or working on behalf of them for, right? So, here's another one. About a year ago, I purchased a new car. Okay. Well, new to me. Okay. And at the time, I was teaching several classes and also traveling, and I couldn't sign the documents, and they didn't want me to e sign, and I didn't want to e sign either. It's a long story as to why. But I said to one of my admins, I said, hey, I'm going to let you go down and sign for me for these documents that I've already seen. So I gave her a special power of attorney to operate on my behalf, to be an agent of mine, right? So we had a special agency relationship where my admin only had access to go ahead and sign documents for me. She was working on behalf of me for one specific thing. Could she go and pick up my prescription medication with the power of attorney that I gave her? No, she could not. Okay. Could she go and, buy another car in my name? So, like, let's say I said to her, hey, here's what you're buying. You're buying this car, this black car. And then she said, ooh, I really like this red car, and I think Stu would really like this. I have power of attorney right now. I am acting as his attorney, in fact. So I'm going to just go and buy the red car as well. The answer is no, she doesn't have that authority, right? So that's the situation there. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about and learning these concepts. Make sure that you're understanding that we're learning them and how they could apply to things not only in real estate, but also in other aspects, right? So, this one says a well known construction company has 8 subdivisions under construction with over 1,500 houses. The company employs its sales staff who wishes to take advantage of working with Company X, which is by far one of the leading real estate companies in the city. If the construction company wishes to hire Company X, but reserve the right to sell its new homes to its own buyers without paying a commission, what type of listing works best? Would that be a net listing, an open listing, an exclusive agency listing, or an exclusive right to sell listing? Oh, no, we're going to the previous one. I hit my button. I move my hands a lot. So listen to what I'm going to tell you. Because some of you what happens is this: you don't see me because I'm very animated. So when I teach classes, I'm extremely animated. And sometimes I hit the keyboard. That's literally what just happened now. But I digress. So, which one here would be the best one to accomplish this for this particular construction company? So, a construction company wants to be able to list with company X, but they want to be able to sell it on their own without having to pay a commission, right? This is a really great example of a time that this might actually be a really good use for this listing type. So, what say you in the chat if you're here with me live? What say you? What say you? So, also, want to point out that there's actually two listings that might work here, but one specifically would probably be the better one. And a lot of people are saying it's exclusive agency. Yeah, absolutely an exclusive agency listing. Okay. So, what happens is this: an open listing could also potentially accomplish this, but what happens is there are not multiple brokers working with the seller. So if the seller said, "Hey, I'd like company X to advertise my company as well as company Y," right? Then an open listing might be the best answer there, right? But in this one, they're simply identifying one company and they're saying, hey, we want to still reserve the right to sell it on our own without paying a commission. So that would be the situation there. Now, I have a question to ask you. What is the difference between the exclusive agency listing and the exclusive right to sell? What's the difference between exclusive agency listing and the exclusive right to sell? Type that into the chat. Let me know. Because, a lot of students get that confused as well. And also, I'm going to dispel some misconceptions about exclusive agency listing. So, a lot of students mistake exclusive agency for a waiver of broker cooperation or keeping what we would call maybe a pocket listing or an office exclusive listing. Right? That's not the case. Those are two separate questions, okay? Those are two separate questions. Um, an exclusive agency listing simply says, hey, the seller is going to reserve the right to sell it on their own without having to pay a commission. Okay. And when we have a waiver of broker cooperation, or the brokerage is not going to be in a situation where they want to advertise it to other brokerages to sell, then that's a separate question. You could have that in an exclusive agency listing. You could have that in an exclusive right to sell, right? So that would be the situation there. So would you have to pay company X commission even if they sold it outside of company X? That's a great question. I think that's exactly what we're going towards. So listen to what I'm going to tell you. Okay. I think the scenario that you're providing. So let me do this. I'm going to tell everyone who's listening, okay? Get a pen and paper. Okay. Because I want you to follow along with me. I'm gonna get a pen and paper and I'm going to write it down. Actually, you know what? I can actually pull up a whiteboard. Bear with me 2 seconds because that's what I'm going to do. So bear with me because I think this is a good question and I think it's good to kind of illustrate this. Just bear with me. My whiteboard, my whiteboard. Trying to get those. Yeah. So um, bear with me. We're just doing a couple things. Continue browser. Da, 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 da. Oh, fudge sticks. It looks like my whiteboard ain't working that great. I didn't anticipate doing that. So here's what I'm going to do. We're going to do pen and paper. I want you to write it down, okay? So what happens is this. We have company X here, right? So company X here is going to have an exclusive agency listing. So write that down. So write down company X has exclusive agency listing, right? So they have an exclusive agency listing with this particular construction company. Now, let's just say that company Y brings a buyer. So your question is, right, that we had come in on YouTube was, would you have to pay company X a commission even if they sold it outside of company X? So in this situation where company Y brings the buyer, the situation is that a commission would still be owed. Listen to why. Okay, and I want you to write this down. I want you to follow me on this. The only scenario in an exclusive agency listing where they wouldn't pay a commission is if the seller sold it on their own. Any other scenario where the seller is not bringing the buyer, yes, they would owe a commission. It is the same. Listen to what I'm going to say as well. It is the same, okay? It is the same as an exclusive right to sell. The only difference is the seller has that little carve out where they could sell it on their own without paying a commission. It's more similar to an exclusive right to sell than it is dissimilar. Okay. I think a lot of students confuse it. And I think where the confusion comes in is the wording where they say exclusive agency because you think it's a pocket listing or where they're not cooperating with other brokers, where the likelihood is that they are, right? And they are bringing in other brokers because, again, it is more similar to exclusive right to sell. It just has that one carve out. That's the only difference. So, that being said, are there any other questions, concerns, burning desires? Thank you for writing that into the chat. That really does, that helps me out. And I love questions about this because I think that this is a common misconception for students, a common one. So, that being said, let's keep it moving. Let's keep it grooving. That was a great conversation we had there, right? So, next one says, as a buyer's agent, a broker feels that the property is overpriced, but the buyer, being from another state, feels that the property is priced right. What should the broker do? This is a great scenario based question. As an agent of the buyer, satisfy the buyer's needs for the property and write a full price offer. B. Attempt to show the buyer more similar houses at a lower price. C. Conduct a CMA and advise the buyer as to what the fair market value should be. D. As an agent of the buyer, protect the buyer's interests by refusing to submit a full price offer. What say you in the chat? What say you? This is really interesting, and I want to know what your thoughts are. Um, As an agent, right? So we're towing the line here in regards to being obedient, but also being careful, right? So there's being obedient and then there's also being careful, right? Um, I think that there is a fine line there, and also advising our clients. Okay, I think that there are several things that you can do in this situation. Okay, um, conducting a CMA to advise the buyer what fair market value should be, I think is the fairest answer that we could probably give here. Now, let me ask this in the chat, okay? If they conduct a CMA and the buyer agent illustrates what they feel to be the fair market value, so they say, hey, this is what I think fair market value should be. And then the buyer says, no, I still want you to put in a full price offer. Is the agent then obligated to put in a full price offer, or should they refuse? Should they say no? I'm not going to do that. I don't think it's worth that. I'm not going to do that. What do you think? What do you think in the chat? That's a really, and I think that helps starts to help you think about how that agency relationship should be in regards to a client agent relationship, right? So we're talking about the principal and client has now been advised. They now are aware of fair market value. They understand why you think that should be the value, right? So you've illustrated that. Now are you obligated to go ahead and submit that full price offer? So let me give you my answer to that. The answer is you are obligated to do that because there is a fiduciary duty of obedience, okay? You should be careful, but an educated and informed client has the right to tell you what they wish for you to do as long as it is legal. And it is perfectly legal for them to place an offer on a property for an amount that maybe you don't feel is justified. Maybe you feel like, hey, it's not worth this. Uh, So, in my 20 plus year career in real estate, have I placed offers on properties that I just sit there and go, no way, Jose, this is not good for the client and this is not going to accomplish our goals, right? Yes, many a times. But what happens is I always present them because those are my instructions and that is what they want me to do to represent them. But they are informed. My client is always informed. I always advise them of what my professional opinion is, right? What my professional opinion is, because we owe our client two things, and I alluded to them before. There are two fiduciary duties, kind of tugging at one another here. There's the duty of care, right? We have to be careful in how we handle our clients, but we also have to be obedient. Okay. So what happens is when we are making this, when we are at a point where we are trying to work with our clients, we do owe them the professional duty of informing them, advising them, giving them our opinions. Okay. But if they then still inform us that they want to do something which goes against what we originally wanted to do, that's a situation where we have to be obedient. We have to say, okay, not a problem, we'll go ahead and do that for you, no issues on that. So I hope that helped you out, and if you have any questions, concerns, burning desires, feel free to type it in the chat. I'd be more than happy to help you out with that. So an agent providing services to client by running inquiries on potential customers, checking their financial background, credit reports, and criminal history. This agent is most likely conducting her job as a transaction coordinator, a listing agent, property manager, or a buyer's agent. So think about the duties that they're providing to a client. So someone is hiring them to do these things, checking financial backgrounds, checking their credit reports and criminal history, right? Now, some of that might be things that can be used, cannot be used, but again, in this particular role, they're kind of asking like what role would this be? What would this be that a client would be doing? Is this a transaction coordinator, a listing agent, a property manager, or buyer's agent? Well, let's kind of run down what each one does, right? So, a transaction coordinator, okay? Transaction coordinator definitely works with a real estate agent or with a team, okay? And they typically are going to be the ones that are going to be, I always refer to my transaction coordinator as my quarterback, okay? The person who is going to be behind the scenes, who is going to help organize the clerical side of things, okay? The transaction coordinator, okay? Now, transaction coordinators are going to be ones that, usually are paid per deal, situations like that. And they are going to, again, be behind the scenes. Then we have the listing agent. So they are working with the seller to secure a buyer. Okay. Now, conversely, I think it would be extremely important to talk about a buyer's agent because they do the opposite. They work with a buyer to find a property. Okay. And the last one here would be the person who is providing inquiries and basically doing background checks and finding out some information, doing some digging on potential clients, potential tenants, would be a property manager. They also might be doing the regular maintenance on a property. So if they're maintaining a property, if they're like let's say I'm a property manager for 123 Main Street, right? So if I'm a property manager for 123 Main Street, what's going to happen is this. I'm going to be working now. Also, type in the chat. Are we working as a special agent, a general agent, or a universal agent as a property manager? Okay. So I'm the property manager of 123 Main Street. I'm going to be doing all of these things, running inquiries on potential background checks, financial ability to be able to pay rent, things like that. Maybe checking references of past landlords, right? Like they said to me, hey, here's my past landlord. I'll make a quick phone call, say, hey, they're looking to apply for a, rental space at 123 Main Street. I heard that you were their last landlord in a different city. If they were to rent from you again, would you be open to it? Why not? Like quick phone call should take 10 minutes, if that, right? So someone said we're working as a general agent as a property manager. Yeah, because we're doing all these things, but also we might be doing something like maintaining the property. So like let's say there's a roof leak or there's something going on in regards to like the electrical being out, or let's say one of the units says, hey, the air conditioning isn't working. You could go ahead and call an air conditioning maintenance place on behalf of the property owner. So you're working in many different capacities. So, like, as you could see, when I just had my admin go down to sign for that one paper, right? That was one thing, right? So she couldn't go and pick up, like, she didn't have universal agency where she could pick up my prescriptions or buy another car for me, right? She could only sign the papers for the car that I purchased, right? But a general agent, what happens is their scope is going to be a little broader, but really put on rails in regards to the one particular aspect of the business. So they could do many different things, not just one thing, many different things within one business aspect for the client, but they can't go ahead and actually work outside of that, right? So I'm the property manager for 123 Main Street. If 456 Main Street had a water leak and it was the same property owner, if I'm not the property manager for 456 Main Street, that's out of my purview. I can't do anything, right? That's not something that I would be able to just go ahead and act on because my general agency doesn't cover that, right? It doesn't cover that. So let's get one or two more in before we wrap up for the day. So let's see this one. This one says, Broker Bob has an exclusive agency listing with seller Sam. 2 weeks after placing a sign in the yard, Sam calls Bob and asks him to pick up the sign because Sam finds his own buyer who came knocking on the door after seeing the sign. Sam felt that he had the right to sell the property himself and not pay a commission. Which of the following is true? An exclusive agency listing allows the seller to sell the property himself and not pay a commission. Under an exclusive agency listing, a commission is due regardless of how buyers found. Sam must pay a commission to Bob because he's procuring costs. An exclusive agency listing does not allow the seller to sell the property on his own without paying a commission. Now, this is a great question. We went over it, I think, a couple weeks ago, but I do want to go over it again because this is a great, fantastic question. So let's talk about this. The sign in the yard. My question is this for all of you. If the sign wasn't present, does the buyer come along? Yes or no? If the broker Bob's sign in the yard wasn't there in this scenario without anything else, does the buyer come to this house? Yes or no? Because this will help you understand the answer, right? Because in this situation, okay, he knocked on the door after seeing the sign, which means without the sign, no buyer. So because of that, okay, because of that, broker Bob should be paid a commission. Okay. Broker Bob should be paid a commission because Broker Bob was the procuring cause in this situation. Broker Bob is the one without their effort. Although, listen to what I'm going to tell you. And I think this is important to understand. Even though their effort was what I would declare to be menial, was what I would declare to be not that much work, okay? That it's still his effort of putting the lawn sign in there, okay? Still his effort of putting the lawn sign in there was what brought about the buyer. So that's the situation there. So listen to what I want to tell you. So everyone, if you haven't already, head on over to passbuddy.com. That's where I have all my practice questions, tips, tricks, all my stuff is there. And I want you signing up because these webinars that I'm doing, so I'm going every single day of the week, but what I'm going to say is this, okay? There will be a day where it's only going to be for our members. So what I'm going to tell you is this. Everyone, listen, head on over to passbuddy.com, sign up for membership, and everyone, listen, enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you all real soon. Have a great one, everybody.